so that he could get the grammar, right? And used cards where he would write Townsend Act, and then on the back, what I wanted him to know, the time, the date, what it was. And then, with the cards, he would then be able to put things in chronological order. He could check, if he knew what each one was. So that was one thing we did. And I did, like I said, I used the internet for that, where he would look up different items. And then we did take a trip to see a lot of the sites. And I'll give you an example. We went to see Fort Ticonderoga, which was one of the very first things that happened. On the way there, we used, the book is called The Spirit of 76, which was edited by Henry Steele Commoner. And it gives you primary sources. So we were able to read, and we're going to Fort Ticonderoga, so we read Benedict Arnold's journal entry of what went on. And then we also read Ethan Allen, what he had to say about it. And then we read what a British soldiers in the station there told about how they took over the fort. So looking at it from 3 different perspectives and then actually going to see it. And one of the things we found out by going to these different places is that you do have to know your history before you go there, because they're going to give a version of history, and it may not be the truth. So that's very important. And another resource that I used to help get to that is called The Theme is Freedom by M. Stanley Evans. And I would say anybody who's going to teach the Revolutionary War should definitely read this book. The Theme is Freedom. And some of the things that we talked about before, if you go back to social contract, if you listen now to history books will say that it came out of the Enlightenment, that whole idea of social contract, and you read Locke, and that's what influenced it. If you read in this, The Theme is Freedom, you say, well, wait a minute, think about it. If you go back to the Magna Carta, that was really where they said, hey, king, you don't have absolute power, and we're not going to allow you to do this unless you, in turn, treat us first. So there was a contract going back on then, which was how many years before you had your age? Go ahead, 1215, okay. So, you have to do a lot of the background and thinking about this before, at least I did.
Who wrote the book, The Theme is Freedom?
Stanton Evans, A-B-E-E-A-N-S. So I used that personally, and I didn't use it with my son. I'm just saying I used it to help get a handle on what it is, because I wasn't using the textbook. Although we did use Critical Thinking in U.S. History by Critical Thinking Press, which again will present 2 different viewpoints, and then the student has to look at the source, evaluate the source, and it's very good because it does get into the logic and then into the rhetoric too, where they have to spit back, well, what do you think about this now? Having read both sources, what do you think was, true? So that's another resource I used. And the other thing is the United States at War, which is an audio cassette series. And it's from Knowledge Products. And again, they have actors speaking the lines of people. So they're not just reiterating history, but again, they're giving you the written version, but it's spoken. Does that make sense? And it's very interesting because they come at it from different angles, although definitely not where I would come from. And if you go to these sites, which we did, and you read some of the information, you would really think that the revolution, I wouldn't call it that, I would call it conservation, because that's really what they did. They conserved the rights that they had. You would think that sprung up without people ever having faith, or ever being moved because of their faith to do any of these things. So there's a website, www.wallbuilders.com, and it's a reformed man, but he has taken the time to excerpt all of the references to religion from all of the original documents, and so you're able to read how they were men of faith and how they looked at the revolution through the eyes of faith. And the very last resource I wanted to share is If you have not read the sermon by Jonathan Mayhew, M-A-Y-H-E-W, I would really suggest you do that. It's called A Discourse Concerning Unlimited Submission and Non-Resistance to the Higher Powers. And he takes, and as Lutherans we would do this, he takes Romans 13 and says, all right, now we're supposed to be subject to the higher powers. The king is our higher power. Let's look at this. And it goes on for many pages. It's very long, but it will really, I think, help put your mind back in the minds of the people who were operating at that time. So those are the resources I have, methods that I used. We read these, saw them.
Did you say where you teach or what?
I'm sorry, I'm homeschool, yeah. I was teaching my son in his 11th grade, and we did this. And we did a 3,000-mile missionary trip also. So we saw Fort Ticonderoga and Boston and Philadelphia and went to these places, which was wonderful.
So I understand you say that you don't believe all the things that the various places the staff tell you?
Yeah, yes. If you go to, some of it is by omission. You go to, we went to the Liberty Bell, and they will tell you that right on the Liberty Bell, proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants thereof, and they stop there. They never finish, but that's a quote from, I'm trying to think, Leviticus. You know? I don't know, I can't think of right now whether it's Leviticus or Deuteronomy, but it was taken from the Bible. They omit that. And by their omission, I think they're omitting a contributing factor to our government and our society, what went on there. We went to the...
May I respond to that? They're probably doing that because of separation of church and state.
But it's on the bell.
I understand.
Okay. You know, I mean, not that they would, I wouldn't even care if they went into it, if they would just acknowledge it. When you go to Independence Hall, they will very carefully tell you this is where they signed it, this is where they debated it, but no one says, and we'll go, by the way, go to Christ Church a couple blocks over, where they in Congress went over and prayed before they did this.
That's correct.
They won't tell you that. They don't even hint it. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And when we got down to Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello, I was trying to think, Charlottesville is where it's located. They went on about how he was not a Christian, how he wrote the Jefferson Bible, which would be just the things that he agreed with, which would be like a red letter edition of the Bible. And they don't give you the balance that in the Northwest Ordinance, which happened when he was president, that they allocated funds for missionaries to go and evangelize the pagans, and they used the Jefferson Bible in it. So I'm saying you do not get a balance, and so I don't think it's the truth that you get. That's what I would say.
They're not telling you the whole story is what you're saying.
Right, and you really have to go out and look at the whole story. Now that Wall Builders website that I gave you is very reformed. I mean, this man is, this is destiny that, we did this, and so he at least gives you some kind of a balance, I think, so that you can fill in the blanks, which you won't find in the history.
Is there anyone from classical school that teaches this in the room?
Well, mine's a classical school, but I teach first grade. You want high school, or what do you want?
I would love the young grades. I don't know about you, but I would love the young grades. I feel like this whole thing is geared more toward the high school, and I'm just like, my little guys are 6 and 8, so.
I teach first grade, and what we have done at Zion is we took it by time periods and divided the American history up, the world history up, and geography up. And so for American history in first grade, well, kindergarten does mostly the presidents and the American symbols and real basic American history. Then first grade does the American Revolution, key events. Second grade goes into the Western movement. Third grade goes back to the American Revolution in more detail. Fourth grade does the Civil War. Fifth and sixth grade does the world history, very detailed, not just a broad overview like the lower grades. And then seventh and eighth grade does American history, very detailed, not a broad overview like the lower grades. And then the same thing with world history. Second grade does Egypt, third grade does Greece and Rome, fourth grade does medieval Europe, and then fifth and sixth grade does the world history in more detail. And so what I did when I first got this handout from him was I looked at the timeline and I thought, what events do I think are very important that they should know and they should know the date for? And then I thought, which ones have I been teaching that my kids do know? And it would probably be taught, like you said, with the flashcards, where they can put it in a chronological order and they can know what the event is. And then I thought of which events from what I had checked off that I thought they should know that they didn't know, that I need to make sure that I put in. Mainly in first grade, we teach it through biographies that we read. I really like the David Adler books. And I read about Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry and, of course, George Washington. And we do a lot with the Boston Tea Party. Baltimore Curriculum Press has lesson plans, and it's kind of a takeoff on core knowledge. And I went on the internet and printed out some of the first grade lesson plans. And they had them make a little boat and put a tea bag in it. It seems kind of silly, but the kids will never forget the Boston Tea Party. And I also found it interesting that here I've been teaching all this time that they did this because of taxes, and he's up there saying, no, it wasn't just taxes. So I need to evaluate how I'm going to teach what the cause was.
You have, it says here in your catalog, you use an 81-point timeline as a backbone.
We've shortened it down a little bit. I think there are 65 now.
But then it says this is a backbone to be memorized by students in increments beginning in kindergarten.
Yes.
And so you have a time frame.
And they do it with, it starts with, and they have an action with it, and then the event and the date. So it goes, Egyptians settled in the Nile River Valley circa 4000 BC, and they clap on BC and they snap on AD. And it goes from that to the decline of the Soviet Union.
To 89?
To, I think the year that they put down was
80.
91 is on our timeline.
Oh, 91, it goes to 91.
And this is based on, I believe Robert Littlejohn wrote it.
Steve Littlejohn.
Or Steve
I mean,
Littlejohn.
that's what it says here. I'm just.
I believe Robert Littlejohn wrote it, and he was at a school in Lynchburg, Virginia, and New Covenant Schools is the name. But we took out some of the events on that timeline we felt were not very, very important for Lutherans, and we added in the Augsburg Confession and Nicene Creed, Athanasian Creed. We added in more than just the Reformed, some of the people they had.
What's the Veritas Academy history cards, Steve? Is that what you use?
No, because my son is older, but.
There is a catalog. It's called Veritas Press, and they are cards that they have a picture on one side and then the information on the other side. And the Mount Hope, that when they presented this morning, they reminded us that they are from a Reformed point of view, and that the teacher should use that for reference. The teacher should not just hand those off to the kids. Veritas Press wants you to buy a set for each child in the classroom to use, but
Do you have a set a set lesson plan approach to teaching history in or revolution in first grade?
there are specific biographies that you must read in first grade.
And who made that determination? Were you involved?
The teachers worked on it with the headmaster.
So the staff developed the curriculum for your particular school?
Right.
Now,
And
did you
we're,
say you do teach classical education?
yes,
Okay. I misunderstood earlier, I thought you said for kids.
well, it's first grade, I thought you guys went into high school.
Okay.
You do homeschool?
Yes, it is.
The other thing is, since she's asking about the low grade, Dover has wonderful coloring books, and they'll have the story, if you want to call it that, down at the bottom of the page, just a few sentences. And then I have my children color it as historically accurate, and they want to know right away who in the picture should have a red coat and who should be Minutemen. And they really enjoy that, and it's not busy work to be coloring because they have to figure out what's going on in the picture. And I think sometimes the picture is really worth 1,000 words, because the teacher can stand up there and tell them, but then they have a picture to not just look at, but they have to color it historically.
Do you have a combined first and second grade, or just a
No,
single class?
we did have second and third grade combined, but next year it's going to be split. So
Okay,
K through 4 will be, well, preschool through 4 will be split starting next year.
What's your PTO or pupil teacher ratio? How many students?
It really varies. Our biggest class.
No, I mean yours.
Our biggest class
No,
is
your class.
17.
You have 17 first graders.
And next year I have 16 enrolled, and I'm sure I'll get a few more.
Do you have
because
assistants,
I
help?
have no teachers. Which I really like the Mount Hope said, you really need to give your teachers names. But I've also had only 8 students one year, so it's,
How about parental involvement?
we are an inner city school, and that really varies too. There are some parents that will come in. One year when I had 17 kids, I said I can't do this by myself. I need you parents to volunteer. And so I had one different parent come in 4 days a week for half an hour. And that's all I got. And I had to really work for that.
What are you, predominantly black?
I would say probably half an hour.
What do you have, a mix in Hispanic?
No, I would say probably 50%
Black and
black,
white.
50% white. There are a few, because the seminary's in Fort Wayne, we have Japanese and German, and we have a few, but mostly it's about 50% black that are there from the neighborhood,
Right.
and then about 50% white that either really want classical education or really want a Lutheran education.
You have a
And
screening
then-
process to get them in?
We are just beginning that for next year.
What's the view screen? What's the?
We're going to have a placement test because we were having a big problem, children coming in from the public school so far behind. And so we're having a placement test to see what to do. And I found it interesting that Mount Hope took one of their 4th graders and said, you can come here with Jeff in the 3rd grade. And maybe I didn't have the story right, but that's how I heard it. when I heard
Well,
the
public,
presentation.
okay. I mean, that makes sense. Is there anything else other than just a grade placement assessment that you're going to administer?
No.
So if I bring my child to your front door and pay the money, you'll take it?
And not, I don't know the exact percent, but last year my class was very few Lutherans, and that's part of
So it's
it.
mostly a mission endeavor?
And that's making problems for the congregation because it's almost splitting the congregation is what do we really want? Do we want a mission endeavor or do we want to do this for our own children? And where is the boundary? And the congregation's going to have to make up their minds.
Right.
What they want.
Does the congregation pay pretty much the full amount?
There is tuition, and of course it's higher for non-members, but the congregation is kicking in a lot of it.
And some of them are on scholarship, I presume.
Yes. And we are very fortunate because in Fort Wayne, there is a Lutheran foundation that has been very good to us. And I don't think we would be able to have as many scholarships and have some of the students that we have if there wasn't that Lutheran foundation.
How long have you been teaching the classical method?
I came the same time as Pastor Brandes came, and my first year of teaching was 6 years ago. We were not classical at all. And then that following summer, after my first year, so this would be 5 summers ago, we went to Moscow, Idaho, to their classical conference, and came back that fall and started implementing it slowly. And
What, one grade a year? Is that
no, because we were already a preschool through 8 school. We did it more by subject. The first year, we really concentrated on, we had already been teaching Saxon math, and so the first year we really concentrated on adding Shirley grammar and a little bit of Latin that first year, and history was the real focus. And the next year we really focused on literature, but all the grades were trying to teach history classically that first year that we did it.
What was your reaction? Did you lose a lot when you started doing classical? Because you said you have 8 and you have 16 and you have, you know, it seemed like you were losing them and adding them and all.
It's very, I don't know why, but there are some classes that seem to be huge with 17 and there are some classes that only have 8. And it just,
So you didn't necessarily have a bad reaction with going classical?
we
from here?
did classical for about 2 years and then we had quite a few leave that they didn't know exactly what was going on and we had, I don't know what the percent was, maybe 15 children left
What's your
because
total?
they didn't want classical.
What's your total student population?
About 85.
85.
Being a lay person and a non-educator, I'm curious, how would you teach or how did you teach history different than what you're teaching that you just explained with classical education? What's different about the process?
It was very textbook based before, and just from looking at first grade, the first grade textbook was social studies, you know, learn about your family, very little geography, very little history, and I just happened to be on there's a Lutheran Education Association in Fort Wayne of 23 Lutheran schools, and I just happened to be on the social studies committee at the same time they were trying to pick a textbook for these 23 Lutheran schools. I just happened to be on that committee at the same time as we were working on our curriculum. And I was just very frustrated because I thought, well, we want to be classical, but even if these other schools don't want to be classical, I feel like it's my duty to pick out the textbook that has the best history. And there was nothing. The one had 2 pages on George Washington, and that was the only thing that I really considered history. It was just all getting along and studying your family and studying your neighborhood. It wasn't teaching history or geography.
So you do not have an adopted text?
We do not have
You
a
develop
textbook.
your own curriculum with the supplementals following this timeline
With the timeline, also
and the history card.
Each grade has a continent that they learn the countries for geography, and a very good resource is geography songs. I believe the name is Troxel, Trowel, And it's a cassette tape where they point to the countries and sing a song. And so added in more things like the songs. But it's not textbook based anymore.
What is your education in classical education? How did you?
I came here to Mequon, and I went through the traditional elementary ed and graduated in the school called me and said, do you know anybody that graduated? We need a teacher, because there was no other way. It was before STEM. And so they called me, and he said, well, I know this girl, but I know that she's a very good student, but I don't know if she knows anything about classical ed. I don't know if she's read the book, and I haven't. And so he recommended me, and we just tried it. And I'm very glad that I went and got involved in it. And I started teaching this way. Besides student teaching, this is the only way I've ever taught. And I think it's harder sometimes for the teachers that taught for 10 or 15 years and then try to change.
I'd agree with that, because we're from California, from the CNH district, and about 5 years ago, our district superintendent decided that social studies, for example, was one of the worst areas. And so as he researched it, he got all of our schools to adopt the core knowledge curriculum sequence, which Rachel mentioned a few minutes ago. And we attacked and decided to do history this year, history and geography. And it's very much in a similar way that Rachel's describing. They have it laid out per grade level. But because we have combined classes, it makes it a real big burden on the teacher, like 5th and 6th grade teacher, to have 2 separate curriculum areas to work on. So what we did is we adopted the Pearson Learning Core Knowledge History Geography series. And that's for grades K through 6. It just came out this last year. And even though we don't want to use a textbook for everything, that has been a really good resource because it takes the burden off the teacher. It also has, for the lower grades, it has, instead of a bound textbook, it has it in small trade books. So there might be 15 or 20 trade books in 1st grade, and the same thing for 2nd grade. And then in kindergarten, it's the big books. Pearson was a publisher that really stuck their necks out to do this, because there are a lot of core knowledge schools, and almost all of our schools are. Again, core knowledge is very similar to classic education, but not exactly the same. We began in our school about 5 years ago. We started with Saxon. We had done Saxon math in the upper grades, and then in meeting with the staff, I decided that we were going to do it in all grades. And then the next year, we actually piloted the Shirley method in our district. I brought it to the principal's meeting. We meet once a month. I brought the materials, said, hey, one of my teachers gave me this. Is it worth looking at? I said, we're going to pilot it in our school. Well, after piloting it and adopting it, many other schools have done that as well. We've done the sayings and phrases that core knowledge has. And one thing we worked on this year is history, geography, and then the coming school year, we're going to do the art and prints and portraits, and then go with the core knowledge class.
How much time do you spend on history in a day class year?
About 20 to 30 minutes per, we have a 3rd, 4th grade class together. About 30 minutes for each, 20 to 30 minutes for each.
What's your student population?
We had 96 students K to 8 last year. Kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd are separate, and then we have 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th combined.
What's your combined PTR?
It varies.
3, 4.
We had 18 3rd and 4th graders to 1 teacher. 5th and 6th grade had 17 to 1, and 7th and 8th grade had 13.
Do you have a cap that it won't go above that?
Well, we're not supposed to go above 24, but I usually don't. I'm the principal, so I get to make some of those decisions. I usually, depending on the kids that are testing that come in, I sometimes will say we're going to cap it at 20.
Well, it sounds like you're averaging a little over 10 right now.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, that's because our kindergarten, we were vacant. Rachel's cousin taught us in the 4th class, and then after that, we had to find a teacher, and that kind of put the, it kind of had some.
How about the funding? How do you pay for this? Tuition or
Tuition is $4,000 a year. except for members, which they receive a 1/3 scholarship from the congregation.
What's the name of that? Pearson Corn.
Pearson Learning, P-E-A-R-S-O-N Learning.
Rachel, I had 2 boys that will be in 2nd and 4th grade. Is there any way that I can teach them classically together instead of doing, because I've been homeschooling, I really haven't homeschooled them both at the same time. I've taken it individually with that, and I was just wondering how I could do that where they teach.
Well, history and science, you could combine them and just make sure that you're hitting the time periods. Doesn't matter if you learn Egypt in 2nd grade, 4th grade, as long as you learn Egypt. The only reason why we did it was we tried to keep it in chronological order, that they learned about Egypt in 1 grade and the next grade they learned about Israel.
That's what our church school does.
But you could easily incorporate learning it together, not necessarily say, okay, American history is for 1st graders, where the American Revolution, more details for 3rd graders. You know, you could just see what your 2nd grader can handle and just do that.
That's not the last time you'll ever teach Egypt. You know, so your 2nd grader will get it
Hear it again, sure.
later in the grade of detail.
And it was just our idea to do it very broad, that they would hear the key people and events and dates in K to 4, and then 5 through 8 they would hear it much more detailed.
Well, I've seen that just in my little one when I was teaching my older one. I didn't realize my kindergartner was listening so much to what I was teaching my 2nd grader. I thought he was just doing his own thing, and then he'd be popping off the answers. So I'd be asking Josh the question, and Steve was in Washington.
Did you tell staff?
Yeah, yes. You're not supposed to learn that yet.
For those of you who homeschool, it's a new field for me. I'm not familiar with that. How many hours a day do you, or how do you structure your day?
My son is a plotting worker, and he does work all day. There's a lot of, we'll start 8:30 or 9 in the morning, and we'll go till about 3 in the afternoon. But I don't have half an hour for lunch. Sometimes kids are able to just get it done in the morning. We didn't start until halfway through the 7th grade, and I started with a classical curriculum. So I was really trying to teach grammar at the same time I'm teaching the logic, and so it's really taken us a lot of time. But it's so fantastic because our history is also our literature. I don't have it separate. You know, he's reading Locke, and he's reading some of the common sense and whatever. So it's all part of it. It goes together.
Doesn't that stress you though, as far
Yeah, it
as
does.
when he's reading a lot of material, you've got to, in order to discuss it?
Right, I have to read it too. We read it, I'll sometimes read it at night before, or we'll read it together. He'll read some, I'll read some, and write together. We'll do it. So it takes some hours on my, although there's so many things now because he's older that he can just do on his own. The math, it's totally on his own, and he comes to me at the end of every chapter and explains what he learned, and I think.
You're going to take him through 12th grade?
Yeah, next year is our 12th grade.
What kind of an emotion do they have when they don't have fellow classmates and they don't have a prom, they don't have a reunion to go to afterwards?
I'll tell you what, he did say to me just a couple days ago, we were at Pizza Hut, and there was a group of, because school was done, there was a group of guys sitting there at pizza. And he said, it's the one thing I do miss now, is having just that time when I could sit around and, not, he's free to do that with any friends, but his friends have gotten fewer and far between the older he's gotten because he's become more and more conservative and confessional, and he can't abide.
My viewpoint of
the other
education
kids.
also includes social
Well,
education.
he does.
You know?
Oh, absolutely. But you see, he's not socializing that much with peers. He's probably more comfortable talking with not more comfortable, but I want to say he's perfectly comfortable talking with adults. And he does take music lessons, he takes karate, so and he works at Sears and meets people there. So he has a lot of chances to interact, but it's not just with his peers, which I think is the benefit of homeschooling as opposed to a negative. What were you going to say?
Well, I put my boys in school this year, and they got socially educated in ways I did not care for them to ever be socially educated, and they know every bad word there is now. I'm not happy with that, but that's life. They would have learned eventually, but I just didn't need my first and third grader learning every word like that. So I totally agree, Barb, in that way that some socialization is not what a parent really wants.
The language or the drugs or whatever.
Well, mine's only first, they're only 6 and 8, so we didn't get into that, but the bad words they certainly could have done without. And just the gross stuff.
Fourth
and-
graders.
What's that?
We busted fourth graders selling drugs, 9 years old.
This past 2 weeks, he was at Christ Academy, which was at Fort Wayne, and it's for high school kids to introduce them into theology and some seminary professors. And I thought, oh, this is good. It'll be 2 weeks with kids his own age who are Christian Lutherans, interested in what he's interested in. But probably by the end of the 2 weeks, he was done with being with kids his own age. And part of it, I guess, maybe he's probably a little more mature. There were kids who were saying comments about girls that were walking around, and come on, that's not what we're here for. That that type of thing. So he was with his peers, but they really weren't his peers too much anymore, because he's just
Even though same chronological age and mental
Right.
age, you're
Right.
saying it's quite different.
right. It's not.
Is your son in particular, is he involved in any outside activity that you mentioned work and?
Work,
and
karate,
Karate, okay, karate.
And music.
and music.
Yeah, that's what I do we used to put him in school this year because I'm from St. Louis, but my husband's on his vicarage, and we're here in Sheboygan. And I figured we didn't know anybody, and, to homeschool, really shelter him and not let him, meet anybody. So we put him in school, and I forgot where I was going with this.
You put them in
Oh,
public
but
school.
when they were, thank you, when I was homeschooling them, they were in scouts, and they did soccer and basketball. So, people always go on and on about this socialization aspect, but it really isn't, because you can put them in sports, and you can put them in different things, and they'll be with other kids and get to know them and all. You don't have to put them in a formalized school to have them get that socialization. Like I stated earlier, some of the socialization you'd rather do without, so.
You plan to take your children through 12th grade?
I go year by year. I didn't know I was going to put them in this year, and I did. So, and I didn't know what I was going to do next year. Both my boys came up to me and said, "Mommy, please homeschool me next year." So, I truly just did 1 year at a time. And every once in a while, Josh, my older one, will say, "Are you going to homeschool me through college?" But I just honestly went 1 year at a time.
Did you find that your boys were a bit
They
ahead?
were way ahead. They just flew through the class. They were it made me feel very good, because they did so well. So I think and they were 5 and 7, so they technically should have been in kindergarten and second, but I was able to put them in first and third where they should be, or in my opinion, where they should be, because I had homeschooled them, and that's where they were educationally. But my older one had to be tested, and he was passed with flying colors, so he got into 3rd grade. Yes, they were the youngest in the group, but they were mature enough that they handled everything, and they got A's and everything, so they did really well.
Do either of you do achievement tests?
Yes, we do Terranova, and last year for a trial we tried OSAT, and it was too much testing. I'm just saying that from the 1st grade teacher's point of view, but we plan on going back to Terranova again next year.
We use Stanford and OSAT.
Stanford?
And I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just
Okay.
Our church uses Iowa Basics.
Because, and you mentioned when your boys went into public school, they assessed them,
Lutheran school.
Lutheran school, they still assess them for grade level? like
Well,
that?
not really. It was just like a little reading test, a math test. She just had him read a column, couple columns of words, and she could easily tell he was quite the reader. And then math, she's had problems from, they consulted, I think it was a second and third grade teacher, and they consulted with all 2 seconds instead of first or third grader, which, I knew in my heart, because he'd gone through my program, for second grade, so I knew he did from that, but it wasn't a formalized class.
Do you have, child comes into your school, and you do an assessment of placement?
Yes, we use portions that we pre-selected from the standard achievement test in reading, in spelling, and math. And if they come to us and we don't feel they're at the level they want to come in, they have to abide by my decision and the admissions committee's decision. Sometimes we send them, we make mandatory that they take tutoring like at Britannica, Stone Learning Center, to get them caught up.
Do you likewise do that?
I'm just a parent. My wife's a teacher.
What do you mean,
but-
just a parent?
I don't teach anything at school. Our school's 3 years old, and it started out as classical education. And so we have a half-day kindergarten. We have a first and second grade teacher, which first and second grade just got done. The teacher that's there is only, they have 2 teachers basically that were there from the beginning. And they had a music teacher that was there, but then they had a kindergarten teacher, and 1 teacher taught 1st through 5th grade. Well, then last year they added a 1st and 2nd grade teacher, and then the teacher that had 1st through 5th went to 3rd through 6th. And that, so basically they've done like the Veritas timeline, but the teacher will teach Egypt 1 year, the next year she taught Greek and Roman, and this next year she's going to teach medieval. Since it's only 1 teacher, she can teach the whole class the whole thing,
Right.
instead of separating. As we get teachers, they'll
That's a
dump
question she has.
after they get to a certain point that they start adding these teachers, they'll dump off to each class a certain history period.
What's your population? Student population?
Last year we had 28 students in first year, and this year we're up to right now something like 38 or something like that.
Where are you located?
Keller, Texas. And our teacher ratio is 15 students.
Is that a policy? No more than that?
Yeah. How's it
So-
funded? From your church?
It's subsidized by the church, but we do have like our kindergarten students, I think, pay $3,000 a year, and our first grader and up, kindergarten's only half day, first grade and up is $4,000 a year.
Who said 4,000 is all the way up? The immigrating level?
Yeah, we have all-day kindergarten.
And then we do have some, we have some discount for teacher, students, and membership stuff, but not a great deal. And then and as far as, like you said, the scholarships, that's just floated in by the congregation, will accept that.
Well, we as a church supplement all of our congregation that sends their students to the school. And we know it's not 100%.
Right.
We send them a chunk of money.
See, ours is, our school budget is included in our church budget. So basically, you can't tell. I mean, when tuition comes in, the school's got a checkbook and a savings account. And what happens is they'll turn around and put all the money that comes in for tuition into the savings account, and as the church needs money, they can draw that savings account, put it in the general fund. And then like that, they also have, the checkbook is basically for like books and materials and your basic fees. They stick that in there because then the school will pay that as they buy their material.
We have like 90 students in this association school.
It's an association of churches, more than how many churches? How many churches?
How many churches? 3.
3?
I think now there's more churches in that town, but the rest of them fell out.
Okay.
And so we have about 100, almost 200 students.
But then even like ours, I think
Where are you guys from?
Kansas.
probably 30% of our our school population is only church members. The other 60%.
Oh, really? No, we would be 80-20.
So ours is more of a mission, but then they also look at that there's no discounted
Right.
fees there, and paying full fees, which is gonna help offset.
Sure. That's a decision they're going to have to make.
We made the decision, we already made the decision, the school is a mission.
Mission school.
of education.
Good deal. Thank you.